What's going on, everybody? Good morning, good evening, wherever you are, and whatever time it is. Welcome back to yet another video with your man, Immersiaholic. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 2 of my Caesar in Rome campaign for the Divided to Para overhaul mod for Total War Rome 2. Everybody, things are getting hot. You will remember at the end of our last episode, the 22nd Legion under Governor Gaius Norbanus left Sicily and is now marching into southern Italy to try and provide Caesar with some support in our two-pronged attack and liberation of Italy itself from the Salani forces. The 22nd Legion marches towards Cosentia. However, they are immediately countermarched, I should say, by the 2nd Legion and the 4th Macedonian Legion. These legions are not only veterans, but they have some amazing auxiliaries, and their numbers are just far too great. The 22nd Legion pulls back, but they cannot make it across the Straits of Messana before the 4th Macedonian Legion catches up. Here, the 22nd Legion must fight for their life. Let's see who wins, the 22nd Legion or the 4th. Here we are on the battlefield already, everyone. We got a lot of battles in this episode. Governor Norbanus here leading his 22nd Legion. This will be the first major test that we see them get involved in. There he is in the background there. The dude, the one guy with no helmet. Yeah, he's feeling confident apparently. He wants everyone to know who is leading his legion. That's also because we use the AAA Generals mod, so we'll see him develop over time. But right now, we are going to see the 22nd Legion march directly into this valley. The enemy is attacking us, but this is a super hilly area of the map, so what we're going to do is march forward and try to present a different area for them to try and fight us on. As you can see along those green lines, we've got a lot of hills that the enemy might just want to camp out on, and the 22nd just can't be stuck in a stalemate right now. So we're going to form up along this blue line right here, and then we're going to hope that because they are also the ones that are trying to attack us, they will be enticed to come down into the valley and fight us fairly and equally. Just a little quick overview of our army. Left-hand flank will have our Sicilian auxiliaries alongside our Roman cavalry units. Governor Norbanus is in the center rear, and then on his left and right-hand flank he has some skirmisher auxiliaries that will be basically reserves for us. Of course, in the center he has the veterans of the 22nd Legion. He has all of his legionnaires in there. He does have a second line with a few reinforcements in it, a few reserves. The right-hand flank is going to look very similar to the left, except we are lacking cavalry over on the right-hand flank. We only have one cohort over there, whereas on the left flank we have two. But you can see we're looking to do a little bit of a piecemeal formation, where on the far left and far right we'll have our cavalry supported by Sicilians, and this center will be just our legionnaires. Here's some shots of the 4th Legion marching down into the valley. So far they are looking to honor the fight that Norbanus is trying to provide them. He's not a super experienced general. He's an older politician. He was a staunch supporter of the Marian, I guess you could call it Marian dynasty, really. So here he'll have to prove himself. So far though, the 4th Legion is completely buying into this. As we can see, they're also very keen. They're running into the combat. They're not staying together. And they're also not pacing themselves. So you can see right here with the beautiful standard of the 22nd Legion, the eagle flies high. The 22nd is simply just waiting for the 4th to attack. And within a few minutes, it does not take long for the battle to truly begin. Begins with cavalry charges happening on both flanks, so we can see in the distance there's also skirmisher fire being exchanged. Boom! Beautiful charge downhill by the right-hand flank of the 22nd. Sicilians march in quickly to try and support the cavalry. Meanwhile, in the center, cohorts of the 22nd have already thrown their peeler. Unfortunately, they did it a little bit too soon. There are still some hold it in reserve, but right now they are getting hammered by the 4th Legion skirmishers. This is not boding well for the 22nd. On the left-hand flank in the distance, we can see some cavalry are exchanging charges with one another. And we're about to see the Sicilians charging downhill on the left-hand flank as well. We have some Sicilian spearmen over here charging into the cohorts of the 4th, disrupting their charge, which is very helpful. And moments after that, the entire battle line engages with one another. We can see some cohorts have some gaps open up in between them. Perhaps Norbanus will try to utilize these over time, but right now the grind begins. We can see a lot of skirmisher fire coming in from the 4th Legion though. Their auxiliaries are really good. Norbanus is going to have to make some drastic changes very quickly to counter them, and we can see here on the far left, he tries to do so by sending cohorts and cavalry all the way around the left-hand side. It is a slow process though, and unfortunately for him, it's not going to be fast enough. His center is holding along here quite nicely. He's about to send in his reserve cohorts though. There's a couple of gaps that he's got to try and utilize with himself and then another cohort to the right. Although the 4th Legion does see this and countercharge with their auxiliaries, but they don't have any reserves, so their men will get worn down before our own. Meanwhile, on the right-hand flank, the general of the 4th Legion has been caught up in a very gritty melee right here. Cavalry of the 22nd engages with the 4th Legion. Norbanus is sending out his men essentially to assassinate the enemy general. So far, no luck, but it won't be long. His personal bodyguards are taking some serious damage. Meanwhile, the other cavalry cohorts do some fantastic charges into the rear of the 4th. 4th Legion is the best legion that the Solani have to offer. However, they are getting outmatched here. Even the auxiliary skirmishers, they've made it around the enemy lines and are now doing some very nice rear charges, putting that pressure onto them, layering it on. And we can see that grind out continues right here. Mixture of legionnaires versus spearmen versus other legionnaires is very messy. Cavalry in the rear of the 4th Legion, causing utter chaos across their lines, disrupting their morale, but this is Romans versus Romans. There's going to be no easy routes here. The auxiliaries over here on the right hand side using their spears to try and overreach the gladius of the 4th Legion. Doing quite well. We can also see that they're trying to use their numbers to their advantage. The auxiliaries, they're nowhere near as well equipped or well trained. But when they team up together and work in unison alongside the 22nd cohorts, they're doing very well. We get some more cavalry charges in, but in the background we have the leader of the 4th Legion get killed. His personal bodyguards rout off the battlefield. And with that crucial kill, the 4th Legion routs, and their men are cut down to a man, as you can see right here. Here are the results if you'd like to see. A decisive victory for the 22nd Legion. Amazing display right here. Not only the strategy was quite sound, but nothing too spectacular. But the men of the 22nd proved their worth. The 4th Legion was actually also utilizing some Italians, some Southern Italians, in particular Samnite cavalry. Put up a very solid defense against the Roman cavalry under our own control, but it wasn't good enough. Then in the bottom right hand corner you can see the entire 4th Legion was decimated. They were entirely wiped out. The 22nd Legion wins an incredible victory here. Very well fought. Not only do we win, but the 4th Legion is annihilated. Under the leadership of Caesar though, Gaius Norbanus knows to release all Roman prisoners, so he does release them back to the Solani. In the meantime, major personal development for Caesar, Marcus Julius Vitellius, is born. However, this is quite awkward as Caesar has only been married for about a month right now. Awkward indeed. Caesar's firstborn child is actually a bastard. A little bit of some drama going on here in the background. Caesar is starting to become well known as a little bit of a player. He likes to get around, and he does not care who knows about it, apparently. And then when you do that sort of behavior, this is what's going to happen. Unfortunately, though, as it is illegitimate, Caesar can't declare his son an heir to his own personal fortune. Not that he has much to offer at this point anyway. Really, all he has is his 10th legion, which the Senate has assigned. But Caesar has no time for celebrations. After his victory over Sulla in northwestern Italy, he did manage to fall back to Medline. He's recovering his losses right there. And the 22nd Legion still has another major legion trying to chase it here. The 2nd Legion of the Salani. It's not as veteranized as the 4th Legion was, not as experienced. But they do have some excellent units in there. And the 22nd Legion needs to pull back to Sicily to try and recover their losses. So they pull back, they set up their fort just outside of Messana. Hopefully that's going to be enough to dissuade that other legion from crossing Messana Straits there, but I mean, the 22nd Legion, they did take some relatively serious losses during that major battle against the 4th. Meanwhile, down here to the south, major developments with the 3rd Legion under Gaius, under Gnaeus Papirius Carbo, Governor Carbo. He's the governor of Africa, assigned the 3rd Legion to help protect it. His men, while they're very well trained, they are very low in number. But you will also remember the Garamantians from the south are launching massive raids all across our province of Africa. And he cannot sit back and allow our farms, our trading ports and whatnot, our trading routes to be ravaged by their raiders. It's unacceptable. So he is going to try and march against the Garamantians to stop this before they cause major disruptions to our economy. Africa is vital to the now Caesarian economy, really. Without it, we lose the grain and we lose the money. As the 3rd Legion continues their march, though, in the west, in Iberia, and now I guess in far northwest Africa, Quintus Sertorius, governor of Hispania, leader of the 6th Legion, begins his march towards the Gaiatuli. Gaiatuli also declared war against us and have been planning raids against us. They've been already fighting our Numidian allies. But the 6th Legion is in a very similar position to the 3rd, where they're very low on manpower. They'll have to utilize local auxiliaries. Caesar, though, continues his savvy diplomacy, and in the far east over here, Armenia actually ends up favoring Rome after having favored the Seleucids and other Easterners for quite some time.
I can agree to this.
Caesar continues to send diplomats anywhere and everywhere all across the Eastern Mediterranean. Allies of our enemies, enemies of our allies, it doesn't matter. The Caesarians are desperate for trade, desperate for income right now, desperate for cash as well in order to pay legions. And Caesar will do anything to be able to pay for his 10th Legion, and more to come. He certainly will need more.
And might almost be a Greek in your thinking.
Back out west, I wanted to show you all a little bit of insight into the governors that we have. Unfortunately, at the beginning of this campaign, the Mariani have a really difficult situation where public order everywhere is pretty terrible. You'll also notice some of my submods alter public order to be really difficult to manage. We got a lot of different cultures to contend with, so you're going to be seeing me go down the camp administrator or the yellow cards here, and I'm going to be selecting anything that will help us with public order. And then in the long term, I will also select different options that will increase our culture. However, we don't have any time for that now. Unfortunately, the 22nd Legion is now being attacked by the 2nd Legion of the Salani. The defense of Sicily happens here. Here we are on the battlefield. The 22nd Legion again going to showcase its skills. It is under strength. They have suffered losses and they have not had any time whatsoever to recover. They've only just finished building their fort, really, when word of the 2nd Legion. already sailing across the Straits of Messina, sorry. Deploys their troops for battle and just charges towards the fort. Their leader. The leader is unknown, but he is incredibly dedicated and very fanatical in his hate of Caesarian forces now. And you can see here he leads the charge for his army, very un-Roman-like. Most likely one of the Easterner generals, probably a Greek loyalist to Sulla, trying to fight in the Alexander style of combat here. But yeah, the 2nd Legion is just charging at the 22nd. 22nd is desperately trying to form a defense along this green arrow, but they do not have any time. They position themselves on the wrong side of the fort. We do have some auxiliaries and cavalry coming around the right-hand flank, but it's taking a lot of time. Meanwhile, the 2nd Legion, they're completely committing to a charge here. Immediately, they throw their pila, get some serious damage on some of the 22nd Legionnaires, and then they charge in following up behind it. There's also cavalry getting involved and a lot of skirmisher fire coming in, pummeling Legionnaire faces, smashing into their shields, rendering them useless. The cavalry, though, does get the worst of it, as the 22nd releases their own pila, does some serious damage, but then Samnite warriors are also following up, eager to demonstrate their loyalty to the Solani, disturbingly so. Perhaps some retribution in southern Italy will need to be had in the near future, but for now, this is a desperate defense. This is 22nd. Does everything it can to throw its legionnaires in the way of the 2nd Legion getting into the camp. They cannot allow any enemy elements into the camp. Otherwise, supplies might be taken, spoils looted, morale will crumble. In the background here, we have a lot of cavalry chasing going on here, with the Solani cavalry trying to retreat further away, but we also have our allied cavalry chasing down enemy infantry and skirmishers, stopping that rain of constant fire on our legionaries. This is then followed up by charges into the enemy cavalry. They are disrupted and destroyed quite quickly. In the meantime, on the left-hand flank of the 22nd Legion, cohorts are now wrapping around the enemy and starting to do beautiful rear charges against them. Charging into some auxiliaries right here, some more Italians combined with some Celtic, specifically Ligurian auxiliaries. Seems that the 2nd Legion has been up north at some point and has brought down the Ligurians. Perhaps from Genoa when Sulla liberated it. Stole it, we should say. But the center of the formation of 22nd is getting very desperate. You can see along this green arrow, green line here, the cohorts are purposely being packed into a dense formation. They're basically holding, they're not pushing forward against the Solani forces. And any gaps in between different cohorts, you can see right here, they are filled with auxiliaries. Sicilian, Greek auxiliaries that are pledging their loyalty to the Caesarians. You can see very tame right here. While individual combat continues right in front of the 22nd cohorts, this is hard for them to watch, but they have to stay disciplined. They cannot allow any troops to get into the gaps. As the battle progresses right here, Governor Norbanus watches on in the distance. A man of steel look right there. He has absolutely no nerves about this because he starts to see the fruits of his patience start to bear fruit. As the enemy begins to rout, we see massive chunks on the far flanks. As these cohorts begin to rout, all-out attacks are given across all of the cohorts of the 22nd. Urbanus rallies his men and pushes them all forward. And under this intense pressure, the Solani forces are literally crushed, and those that aren't crushed flee into the hills. But they are now in Sicily, and they have almost nowhere to run. They run all the way back to their ships, and the 2nd Legion is kicked out of Sicily. Here are the stats. If you'd like to pause and take a quick look, you can see our Sicilian allies really took some heavy casualties, so perhaps Norbanus put a little bit too much faith in them. Might be time to recruit another legion for him instead. We shall see going forward. Unfortunately, some elements of the 2nd Legion here do manage to pull back and retreat. Not much though, but their general did escape. The coward he was, although he did charge initially in the first wave, so perhaps not a coward, just very, very lucky. Who isn't lucky though is the 3rd Legion. Getting back into Africa, Governor Carbo has a massive Garamantian force marching directly towards the city of Carthage. Thankfully, the 3rd Legion is right in the way. They're going to set up in a fort just to the east of the Garamantians, and they're going to stop them from marching against any of the coastal towns, and of course towards Carthage. That cannot be lost. City of Leptis, just to the east, is also a vital trading port. All of these settlements, they just cannot be lost. They cannot be raided. That's why the 3rd Legion is so desperately trying to hold off there. Meanwhile, across the rest of the Mediterranean, the Solani forces are being dispersed, but we're starting to see some concerning things here, where reports of their navies are also starting to crop up. Meanwhile, in Sardinia, the 6th Legion is also assembling troops, perhaps to march against Caesarian holdings in Corsica. This does not bode well for us. However, they are isolated to just the islands right now. Hopefully, that means that they'll be distracted. Corsica is, of course, a very nice strategic island, but economically it doesn't affect us too much right now. Meanwhile, Quintus Sertorius, while his legion still isn't at complete full strength, he is going to rely on his connections to the local Iberians to use their auxiliaries and their chieftains in their cavalry formations. And he begins his initial siege of Tingis right here, one of the major cities of the Gaetuli. It's quite a large city though. It's going to take some time for him to build enough siege equipment to get across, but once he does, he can then spread across northwestern Africa and take out the Gaetuli. They do have some fantastic resources down here and some very nice potential trade ports. Will he occupy it directly, or will he force them to be a client state? We'll have to wait and see. It will most likely be more beneficial to take them over completely. The rest of Iberia is looking quite good too, so perhaps Sertorius can take his time here in invading Africa. Meanwhile, Caesar, summer has come. His troops are still not fully recovered. It's been very hard to recruit men consistently out here when he's very isolated. Genua still has fallen to the enemy. Batavium to the east is also directly under Solani control. Caesar's just trying to do what he can to make sure his army doesn't starve. So instead of sitting around and hoping to find more men, he is going to begin his march back west and liberate Genua. The garrison has been reinstalled there, but they are relatively minor. And the 10th Legion makes short work of the garrison. Caesar occupies the settlement here. The garrison is entirely put to the sword, but the population and the town itself are left unharmed. This is excellent now. Milan will now be able to receive grain and supplies via the sea trade routes here. Caesar doesn't have time to wait too much longer though, and neither does the 3rd Legion, as during the end turn, the Garamantians launch a surprise attack against Governor Carbo. Can he defend Africa, the jewel of the Roman Republic? He has to, no matter the odds, and the odds are not in his favor for this one. Let's see how Governor Carbo does with the 3rd Legion against the Garamantian onslaught.
May the gods grant us the strength to prevail against our foes and keep this place for our people. I will bend my every effort to this struggle, and I know you will do the same. We will hold.
We will hold is his order that he gives to all of his cohorts. It's gonna be hard though. He is severely outnumbered. He gets caught off guard by this massive Garamantian force, so he keeps his army inside of his fort. The Garamantians, though not used to Roman tactics, will most likely go ahead and assault it. We have some Legion cohorts here. Well equipped, well trained, but not very well experienced. These are definitely raw recruits. The Garamantians, very lightly armored, very fast moving, very skirmisher based. So we can see within just a few minutes of the battle beginning, thousands of projectiles are being exchanged between the local Libyan auxiliaries under Carbo's command versus the Garamantian onslaught. Thankfully, the archers that Carbo is employing are far more accurate than the cavalry skirmishes of the Garamantians. We can see our initial formation. Auxiliaries are at the front on the western gate over here, trying to stop the Garamantians from getting in. We do have cohorts in the rear that can circle around if need be, try and provide support to that western gate. And look at all these projectiles. Oh my goodness, hundreds of them are being exchanged every few seconds here. It is just non-stop, and unfortunately the Libyan auxiliaries under Carbo are going to take serious losses. Very limited shielding and low armor means that they're just not going to do very well against all of those projectiles. However, the Garamantians are very disorganized. They actually charge their own cavalry into the rear of their own men. They are so keen for the plunder that they believe is being held in this camp. Meanwhile, the 3rd Legion keeps its cohorts in the rear. They do throw their pila in there to try and support the Libyan auxiliaries. They will then go into testudo formation shortly, but before they do, man, they're getting absolutely hammered by the Garamantian skirmishers. Very frustrating form of fighting for the Romans to have to deal with here. Very dishonorable from their point of view. However, there is a single Libyan cavalry unit that has been recruited by Carbo, and it's being sent on a very specific assignment here. It has to take care of the slingers of the Garamantians. The slingers are dealing severe damage against their own men, and they're also out of the range out of our Libyan archers. Beautiful charge comes on in, however, we do see a counter charge come out of the Garamantian line as spearmen try to chase away the Libyan cavalry. You can see they break away from the main battle over there. Libyan cavalry will be able to retreat, but they will also circle back around and make another run at the slingers shortly. Here's the 3rd Legion setting up in testudo. Libyan archers still providing serious support as the last few volleys of pila are being thrown against Garamantians here. And then Carbo makes a bold move here. He splits his already very weak and very understrength legion in half. So instead of having 4 cohorts ready to back up his western gate filled with Libyan auxiliaries, he's going to actually send 2 cohorts out of the southern gate alongside his personal bodyguard right there, while 2 other cohorts try to hold that western gate backed up by their eagle cohort. Essentially splitting his army in half right here. We can see 2 cohorts right there following him to outflank the enemy. Meanwhile, back in the fort, things are looking extremely dire. With the 3rd Legion about to send in its reinforcing cohorts, the Libyan auxiliaries taking a pounding from the Garamantians who are just swarming them. Things are getting desperate. Just as the 3rd Legion begins to rally and charge on into the battle, they're almost set. They're just waiting for the signal from Carbo. We can see here in the center we have the Eagle cohort combined with those extra 2 standard legionary cohorts. They will charge on into the major blob of the Garamantians. No other way of describing that one. Meanwhile, from the south and then from the further west, Carbo brings these cohorts around. In addition to his own personal bodyguard, not necessarily a warrior himself, but he does know the desperation of his current situation. Staying disciplined and in formation, Carbo announces to all of his men to charge on cue. His flanking cohorts charge into the rear of the Garamantians just as a major push is sent out from the western gate. The Garamantians get absolutely caught completely off guard here as the heavy infantry crashes against the lightly armored tribesmen and warriors here of the Garamantians, and we can see that immediately the Garamantians begin fleeing, not just by the hundreds, but by the thousands. All of their army begins routing within a single charge due to this massive maneuver, this major gamble that Carbo made has pulled off with excellent results here. The Garamantians, while they do fade away back into the desert, many of them are crushed under the hoofs of Carbo and his men. The 3rd Legion wins their first major test. Here we are with the statistics, a heroic victory. You can see though our Libyan forces absolutely got hammered, but there was massive amounts of kills to go around. The archers did fantastic, legionaries did amazing as well. You can see we're almost outmatched 2-1. Yet Carbo pulls off the victory. Garamantians suffer catastrophic losses. Absolutely brutal. They should have known better. In this case though, the captives will be killed as they are not Roman. Caesar has sent orders to all of the others, all the other governors, to be brutal when dealing with non-Romans. However, Caesar is not in charge of the Republic. And so in the next episode, we will see more developments happen where consuls must be elected now that Gaius Marius and Gaius Marius the Younger have both been killed or died in their various ways. 3rd Legion does continue its march deep down into Garamantian territory, believing that's the only army against them, but we'll see what happens with that. Meanwhile, up here in the north, Caesar does something a little bit different to the rest of the governors. Here, he actually sends out spies and agents to try and gather as much intelligence as he can on these Solani force movements. He also comes up with a very unique style of marching where he marches his legion very quickly, but he does it in very short bursts. Here, he's able to use this to make sure that his forces aren't ambushed, and he can also engage in battles on his own terms. Caesar marches directly on Arretium. Once Arretium's taken, Rome is then completely open for the taking. It is a decent sized garrison, however, with Caesar now doing quite well against other Romans, unfortunately. With his 10th Legion marching directly on the city, the garrison is dealt with very easily, and they are swept aside. You can see the very professional marching column right there. But that's a battle that isn't worth showing you all, as Caesar and the 10th Legion handily defeat the garrison at Arretium. They peacefully occupy the city, and now Rome itself is completely wide open for the taking.
Ready for orders.
There we have it. We can see there isn't even an army inside of Rome. There is a large garrison, but Caesar does know that the garrison there is very large, so he's going to take some time here. He's going to really start to figure out how he's going to be running his legions now. He's getting a little bit more experience, really starting to become a proven leader, a commander of men in every sense of the word. That and the 10th Legion is starting to specialize more in being aggressive fighters and also in siegecraft. Caesar is very adamant about developing siegecraft skills. He knows that fighting other regions, other provinces in the east will involve some major city fights. He also develops his personal entourage with a very large focus on experience. He also has a little pet goose, which helps do stuff. It keeps his legions in line. Everyone loves the sacred goose. They believe that it's a gift from Mars himself. A deadly goose marches into battle with Caesar as well. But Caesar is becoming quite the leader, not just the general, but quite the politician as well. The 22nd Legion has had a couple months to recover now, and they're actually going to relaunch their invasion back into Italy. That way they can march on Cosentia, and then as they do that, Caesar can potentially march directly back on Rome, or if there's too many legions in the area, he might have to go down the east coast of Italy and follow in the steps of Hannibal. But before we do that, Quintus Sertorius out here in Iberia. Winter is coming. He does not have the resources to stand through it. His men are already suffering casualties in this siege, and he is going to go ahead and assault the city of Tingis. But, ladies and gentlemen, that will happen in the next episode. So thank you all so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I shall see you in the next one.